Good morning, students. Good morning. Your novel this term is called Round the World in 80 Days. And before I'll give you the explanation of chapter 1 and chapter 2, I'll talk about the main character of this novel. The first character or the most important character in our novel is Mr. Fogg. Mr. Fogg was an Englishman. He was a fine looking gentleman. Okay, he was a fine looking English gentleman. Also, we have Passepartout. Passepartout, the new servant for Mr. Fogg. He was a Frenchman. He had been an acrobat and a dancer. The third character is Mr. Fix. He was one of the most important detectives who was sent to find the bank robber. Also, we have Oda. Oda was a girl. She was an Indian girl. She was a girl of a great beauty and the daughter of a rich merchant. Okay, let's start with the first chapter. In the first chapter, Mr. Fogg, we will learn or we will know that Mr. Fogg was a member of the Reform Club, and he never spoke about himself. He wasn't a businessman. He wasn't a farmer. He wasn't a scientist, but he seemed to have no business. Also, he seemed to have no business. Okay. He talked very little. Also, Mr. Fogg always did exactly the same thing in exactly the same way every day. Okay? His only activities were reading the newspaper and playing the cards. He played not for money but for the love of the game. On the 2nd of October, Mr. Fogg dismissed his servant, John Foster. He was guilty as he brought the hot water only 84 degrees instead of 86. And then the new servant came, and the new servant was Passepartout. He was a Frenchman. He had been an acrobat and dancer. He came to England as a servant. Okay? And after that, Mr. Fogg went to the Reform Club. To his usual place at his usual table to take his meal. After that, the member of the Reform Club began to talk about a great bank robbery. The robber had stolen £55,000. Okay, Andrew Stewart, one of the member of the Reform Club, said that the thief will be caught. They went on talking about the chances of the robber being caught. They said that he could easily hide, but Mr. Fogg didn't agree and said that the world was no longer a big place. And they began to talk about how long it would take to go around the world. Mr. Fogg said 80 days would be enough. But Stewart said it was impossible. It was impossible to go around the world in 80 days, and he offered a bet. Okay? He offered a bet of £20,000. And Mr. Fogg agreed, and he accepted the bet, and he said that he would start the journey this evening. Then he went to his servant. He went to his house and told Passepartout, the new servant, that they must leave in 10 minutes. They took nothing with them except night clothes and a bag of £20,000. Okay? And this is the summary of chapter 1. I'll read it with you. In the year 1872, there was a man called Phileas Fogg. He was a fine-looking gentleman. He lived in London. He was a member of the Black Reform Club. He never spoke about himself. He has no father or mother or wife or children. He didn't appear to have a job. He doesn't have any friends. He kept his accounts in a bank, and he put his name that he wished to be a member of the Reform Club, and he was accepted. He was a rich man, but he didn't spend much money, but he wasn't interested in saving money. Mr. Fogg used to do the same things every day. There was no secret about his habits and his daily life. Nobody knew if he had traveled or not, but he hadn't left London for many years. His activities were reading the newspaper and playing cards. Mr. Fogg lived with his servant in his house. One day, Mr. Fogg dismissed his servant John Foster, as he brought him the water in a wrong degree. He was waiting for a new servant to come. His name was Jean Passepartout. He was a Frenchman. After meeting Passepartout, Mr. Fogg left the house and went to the club, where he met the members of the club. They talked about the robbery of the bank. They have different opinions. One of them said that the world is so small and the thief wouldn't be able to escape as it would take 3 months. But Mr. Fogg argued them, saying it would take only 80 days. They decided to have a bet of £20,000 if Mr. Fogg can go around the world in 80 days. And he would start his journey that day. He went home and told Passepartout to get ready for a journey around the world with a small traveling bag with £20,000. Okay, here are some questions. Why does Phileas Fogg go to the Reform Club? To read the newspaper and play cards, meet his friends and have his meals. Number 2. Mr. Fogg was a man of habit. Explain. He was a punctual man. He always did the same thing in the same way. He had meals at the club at same time, in the same room, at the same table. What do you know about Mr. Fogg? He was a fine-looking gentleman. He lived in London. He was a member of Reform Club. Why did Mr. Fogg decide to go in a journey around the world? To prove to the members of Reform Club that the world was no longer a big place. Okay. Chapter 2. Okay. In chapter 2, Mr. Fix will appear. Okay. As we said before, that Mr. Fix was the detective who was sent to find the bank robber. Okay. And after 7 days, Mr. Fogg and Passepartout arrived by the steamer Mongolia. It's a name of steamer. Okay. To South. Okay. When Passepartout went to sign Mr. Fogg's passport, Mr. Fix examined the passport closely, and when he read on it the description of Mr. Fogg, he became sure that it was the passport of the man he was trying to catch. Mr. Fix told the council what he thought, and he asked him to keep Fogg in his office until he receives the warrant. Okay, and the warrant means that it's a printed paper. Okay, and by this printed paper he can catch Mr. Fogg. Without this printed paper he couldn't catch Mr. Fogg. Okay, so he asked the council about his thoughts, and he asked him to keep Mr. Fogg in his office until he receives the warrant to arrest Mr. Fogg. But the council said that if his passport is in order, he can't stop him from going on to India. Okay. Then Mr. Fogg came to the council's office to sign his passport, and the council asked him why he wanted to sign his passport. It's not impossible. But Mr. Fogg told him that he wanted to prove that he have passed through south. Okay, then the council signed the passport. Okay, then Mr. Fix found Passepartout alone. He began to talk with him about his master. Passepartout told him that his master was in a hurry and they tried and they left London. So suddenly he told him that his master was in a hurry and they left London so suddenly. Okay, then they started to talk about the time. Mr. Fix said it's only about 12 o'clock, but Passepartout said it's only 8 minutes to 10. Then Mr. Fix told him that his watch is slow, but Passepartout refused that and said that his watch belonged to his father's grandfather and his watch is never wrong. Okay, then they returned to talk about Mr. Fogg and talking about the money with him. After this conversation, Mr. Fix was sure that Mr. Fogg was the bank robber. Okay, then Mr. Fix sent a telegram when the ship was in its way to Bombay. Bombay here, it's a name of country. Okay, to send him a warrant. He asked them to send him a warrant to arrest Mr. Fogg in Bombay. Fix joined the journey to Bombay. Okay, but he couldn't arrest Mr. Fogg. Okay, here it's the summary of chapter 2. Chapter 2, Fix the detective. 7 days later, they arrived by the steamer Mongolia to South. There was a man. He was called Mr. Fix. He was a detective who was sent to find out the robber of the bank. Passepartout was sent to get the council sign that they passed south. He met Fix and Fix asked him to tell Mr. Fogg to come by himself if he wanted to have the council's signature. Fix went to the council and told him that he had doubt towards a man. And he would come to get his signature. The council told him that if he came, he wouldn't be the thief. Mr. Fogg entered the office and took the council's signature, but Fix still found him the thief. Mr. Fix went to Passepartout and asked him about his master. Passepartout told him that they left London in a hurry to go in a journey round the world with a bag contained a lot of money. Fix encouraged the Frenchman to say more, and Passepartout told him everything he knew. He also told him that they were going to Bombay. Fix told the council that he was sure that man was the thief. Fix sent a telegram when the ship was in its way to Bombay, okay, to send him a warrant to arrest Mr. Fogg in Bombay. Fix joined the journey to Bombay. The railway station was built to cross land from west to east. Okay, there are some questions. Answer the following question. Who was Mr. Fix? He was one of the most important detectives who was sent to find the bank robber. Next, why did Mr. Fogg go to the council? To get his passport signed. Number 3, what did Passepartout tell Mr. Fix? It was my master who was in a hurry to go a journey round the world. Okay, also we have another kind of question which is called comment. Okay, it's a sentence between brackets. Okay, and after this sentence we must comment on it. If he is the robber, I don't think he come to my office. Okay. The council said these words to Mr. Fix when he told Passepartout that his master should come to the office to sign the passport. Okay, in this kind of question, okay, we must say who said these words to whom. As we say, the council said these words to Mr. Fix. Okay, also we said the occasion when he told Passepartout that his master should come to the office to sign the passport. Okay, so when we wanted to answer a question like that, we must say who said these words to whom, and also we must talk about the occasion of this sentence. Okay, thank you for today. Goodbye and good luck.